Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Spires, A Fortress Called Home, out June 21st on Frontiers Music. This album has 12 tracks, 64 minutes in length, and this is the band's fourth full-length studio album. They are an American symphonic metal band. And for their latest record, surprise, surprise, they're coming back with another story, with another concept that really brings in the structure of the record and allows you to feel like you're going for a ride. There's definitely a journey, there's definitely a process, there's definitely a path with this record. Nothing new for the band, but on this record, I felt like they were able to fine-tune some of the sonic elements that we had seen in previous records, and that obviously has an impact on the overall album experience. And the design also contributes to that same album experience because you want to make the record as engaging, as entertaining as possible, especially when you're talking about 64 minutes across 12 songs. It's all about giving the most with each and every single track, if possible creating an internal journey with each and every single song, and then allowing those smaller journeys to build a much larger road in which the whole album comes to light. And I honestly felt like this record had the perfect flow. 64 minutes, you don't really feel the time passing by because you completely engage with the record, you completely engage with the sound, with the vocal performances. So this is an album that allows itself to really showcase all of the great qualities that this band has been showcasing in the past, but in a more mature, in a more refined way. And that is also visible in the sound of this record, because I felt like this was an album that at its core, it had the Seven Spires sound, the sound that we've been seeing across previous records, that we've been seeing growing across previous records. But on this album, as the design, the sound feels more complete. And I think one of the reasons for that is instead of trying to add a lot of different ideas into a single song, I feel like they streamlined each and every single track to be more focused, to be more narrowed into what they wanted the soundscape and the experience to be within those tracks, but then offering more diversity on a song-by-song basis. This really allows the band to create incredibly powerful songs that always have this sense of beginning, middle, and end, and not afraid of going to the edge of the limits in terms of the sound influences on those tracks, but then finding a way of tying them back together and showcasing that diversity. And I think the element that perhaps ties this record together the best is the guitar sound. The guitar sound has a clear impact, and it's one of those common denominators that we've seen carrying on from previous records and into this album. The beauty of the solos, the melodies, the way the songs are arranged from a guitar standpoint, it definitely showcases the DNA of the band and allows this record to have this bass line that feels very common across each and every single song, but it also ties in this record sound-wise with what they've done in previous albums when it comes from that guitar perspective. But then you have other elements that feel a little bit more technical in terms of what they give to the songs and what they give to the record. One of those elements, for example, is the bass. I felt like the bass on this album is way more noticeable than the bass sound on any of the previous albums by Seven Spires. It's also a little bit more technical, and it's also a little bit more progressive. There's a little bit of all of that coming through. But first and foremost, allowing the bass to really jump through in the mix quite frequently on almost every single song. You notice the impact that the bass has, and the impact that it has is not just one of playing the melody or carrying the riff, but rather one that takes the song into that more progressive, that more technical territory, which adds maturity to the sound, adds maturity to the songs, and therefore maturity to the album. So this was the first element that I noticed that evolved tremendously across the previous records into this one, and it sets itself apart when you look at how it sounded before and how it sounds now. The other element that I thought was really cool on this record is the drum sound. The drum sound on this album does exactly what it needs to do, which is to match and fit the song style, the song experience, and the influences that the songs have. On tracks where you get more of a symphonic experience, the drums, while powerful, they feel a little bit more like a layer. They don't have that same drive. They don't have that same impact. and songs that have almost a symphonic death metal experience, very similar to a Flesh God Apocalypse track. The drums obviously come in with a lot more heaviness, a lot more power, really punching through the sound and being a core element that drives the experience. And then in ballads, where some of them, the keys become one of the main protagonists, the drums are there more to fill in the space, to give some warmth to what the overall sound experience is all about. So it's not that we haven't seen in the past this sort of pattern or this sort of drum sound, but it's way more defined on this record because the songs are more defined as well. And the more defined the songs become, the songwriting around the songs, the better the drum fits into what the experience of the track is all about. And all of these elements are coming to life, guitars, drums, and bass, because the production behind this album allows it to do so. For as much of a symphonic experience this record has, for as much as the orchestrations on this album have an impact, I honestly felt like they were controlled, not over the top, not overshadowing all the other elements, specifically the vocals, but rather as a way of creating a cinematic experience. They were there not just for melody, they were not there just for atmosphere, they were there to really create the shape or the borders of what these songs were supposed to be, what they were supposed to represent, the moods that they were supposed to represent. So it's a symphonic metal album that allows that symphony, that allows those orchestrations to become the catalyst of the cinematic experience of the record itself. Last but not least, you have the vocals. This is the most dynamic album vocally that the band has ever done. From the guest vocalists to Adrian's own performance, this album, it has so much life, it has so much energy. I was also surprised by how much of her harsh vocals were used on this record. Obviously, we've heard them before, we know what she can do with her range, but I felt like on this album, even in songs that didn't necessarily have a heavy fingerprint, she was able to bring them into the mix, she was able to bring them into the story and use them in order to enhance the ebbs and flows and to enhance the climaxes that each and every single song offers to the listener. That is a different side of her and a different side of the band that I don't think was ever this defined or this well defined before. So when you add that to her incredible vocal range of her clean vocals, her singing voice, mesmerizing at times, super warm, but also very cold, her range and what she offered with that range really brought this record to life. I honestly felt like at times I was listening to 10 different singers throughout this entire album, because that's how dynamic, that's how rich her voice was, and it allows this overall album to sound and feel almost like an Avantasia record, just darker. And this is a huge compliment, because I feel like this is a band that's at the cusp of becoming that sort of style of band in terms of what they can offer and what they can do, but having different tools and how they can deliver it and in terms of how they can present it. And this album could be the record that definitely separates all the great albums that they've done before, but it separates it because it elevates the quality of the record, it elevates the grandiosity of the record, making it a little bit more of a mature, darker album. Like I said, a darker Avantasian version of what an album could sound like. And that is, in my humble opinion, the best compliment that I could give them, because this album has an incredible quality. It's a record that is demanding from the audience point of view. You can't just digest a song here and there. You really have to sit through it. Perhaps their most demanding album to date, but also the most rewarding album to date. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Portrait of Us. The guitars and drums bringing big volume. The orchestrations elements emphasize that volume, that size, but then the bass really helps define the more progressive technical side of the song, almost creating movement within the track itself. Vocally, very warm, very powerful, pushing almost a fantasy style vocal performance, which matches the sound perfectly, and this allows the track to have great life all around. The chorus is magnificent, one of my favorite choruses on the entire album. Very bombastic, both musically and vocally, and the bass is just so good. This track, you have two elements that will resonate with the listener, and it's not even the harsh vocals towards the tail end of the track. It's really the overall vocal performance and how cool the bass sound is. Next we have Emerald Necklace, a ballad, a stripped down ballad, at least in the way that it starts, with the pianos in the background and then the vocals carrying the track through. This allows you to strip down all the sound behind it and allows you to focus just on the vocal performance. One that adding that piano sound in the background allows it to be very cold. It's a song that has this, I wouldn't say darkness, but there's a hint of somberness to this track, and then there's a cold breeze, a really cold breeze that makes you shiver coming through the way the vocals are impacted by those keys pushing from the background. Allows this song to have this very classic feel to it that becomes even more classic once it starts to build up into what I traditionally call a true metal ballad fashion, which is a song that starts very stripped down and is very stripped down for 2 verses, 2 choruses, and then it builds up with the guitars, drums, bass, everything coming in, creating more volume, creating more warmth, ripping apart a little bit of that cold nature that was there before due to the keys and the vocals, and allowing the song to become a little bit more complete and finalizing itself in a big bang. And that's exactly how this track is put together. Very classic heavy metal ballad style song. Next we have House of Lies. Now House of Lies, it's still a ballad style track, but more of a power ballad, if you will, because it's never as stripped down as Emerald Necklace, but it still has those core elements of a ballad. It's a track that has great ebbs and flows. It has a great chorus, has a very somber, also very dark atmosphere, which the keys also help to create. Another song that uses the keys to create that experience, but this track has definitely a lot more volume and a lot more heaviness once the drums and guitars come in. And that's what allows it to have more of that power ballad feel to it, because it definitely has a little bit more intent, it has a little bit more direction, but also a little bit more heaviness with it. This is 7 Spires, A Fortress Called Home, out June 21st on Frontiers Music. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section, and I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.